Welcome to Psych Talk. I'm your host, Dr. Jessica Rabin, a licensed clinical psychologist. If you are a mental health professional, student in the social science field, or just interested in psychology and mental health, this podcast is for you. Although topics discussed on this podcast are similar to therapy, Psych Talk is not a replacement for therapy and is for educational and entertainment purposes only. So let's dive into today's episode. Hey everyone, welcome back to Psych Talk, and thank you so much for joining me for today's episode. Today I have a very special guest with me, Dr. Charlie Powell. Dr. Charlie Powell is a decorated former Naval Lieutenant Commander, war veteran, multiple medical patent holder, and former owner and chief medical officer of a major medical system in Texas. He is the father of a special needs son, Charlie, who is the inspiration for St. Charlie Resorts. In 2024, Dr. Powell founded Solo Vive, meaning just live, as the parent company to St. Charlie Resorts, Vive Scientific, Solo Vive Studios, and Healing Heroes, a treatment program and documentary with the aim of helping victims of PTSD, of which he himself has found healing. His passion projects also include special needs children and families and anyone that needs a louder voice for their health and well-being. So, Dr. Charlie, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
So I just read your bio. You're clearly doing a lot, but I always love my guests to introduce themselves, share a little bit about themselves, anything about your background, what you're doing now, and anything I didn't share about you.
Up till a couple of years ago, I was pretty sure just didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up.
Wow.
I've had a lot of roles. I joined the military to pay for college. My
Hmm.
parents gave me the most valuable things in this world, which are good moral compass and priorities and logical thinking and love, and but they couldn't afford to send me to school. So I joined the Army to use the GI Bill to go to school. Figured it was pretty safe at that point in 1988. There
Okay.
had not been war in quite some time. And the day I wrapped up my training as a combat medic in the Army was the day that Desert Shield became Desert Storm, Operation Desert Shield to Desert Storm. And so, yeah, a 19-year-old learns to grow up pretty quick. But
Yeah.
prior to that, I was an engineering student. I've held lots of careers and jobs. In fact, I used to put out a questionnaire to my staff when they would join and say, "All right, so we get to know each other. Which one of these jobs do you think I haven't done?" And funny enough, the ones there's a slew of them, from fried
Hmm.
chicken cook to McDonald's, everything else, right? But there's two in there. There's a NASA test pilot, and then there is nude model. And they always pick one of those two, and it just breaks my heart. I'm just like, really? Come on, guys. But no, the fact is, I've done them all. And um, but at the same time, even in medicine, I was originally trained in family medicine.
Hmm.
Went back and went and did trauma ER, and then I went back and got boarded in cosmetics. And I just always have had this drive to learn and do more. And so even after I left the Navy well, sorry, let me kind of give you the history. So after the Army, I got picked up for medical school.
Okay.
And I got a Navy scholarship, so I switched over to the Navy. So I spent a total of 16 years in. So from 89 to 2005. So I bookended my career with two Gulf conflicts, right? Um,
Yep.
but yeah, and hey, it was a great career. Everybody says, why don't you just spend 4 more years in before you punched out? And I was just
Yeah.
like, my wife decided she wanted to leave the military, and well, she wasn't in it, but she was in it, right?
Yeah.
She got tired of the threat of being a single mom. But
Hmm.
anyway, we got out, landed in Dallas, Texas, had a great opportunity there, and set up shop. And the rest I thought was going to be history. Just have a long, happy career, making more money than I could in the military, and lo and behold, things really went a direction I didn't expect once
Hmm.
I got to Dallas. I went to work for a small clinic. I wound up buying it 2 years later. I got some great partners. We built it into a healthcare system, and we exited from that about 4 years ago when we sold it to United Healthcare. And it sounds like I should have the American dream, right? Came from nothing, worked my butt off, got to where I was. I put in the work, put in the time, but for me, it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
It was probably about 2007 is when I started. We thought it was just stress-induced depression, anxiety that was kind of
Hmm.
creeping out, the isolation and everything. But no, my angry outbursts were becoming a little more frequent as well. And then shortly after, I started getting treated with SSRIs. Then it went into okay, now the night terrors. Now we know what this is, and it was really
Yeah.
coming out. So I suffered from PTSD for about 17 years total,
Hmm.
and was treated everywhere from the VA system to personal docs. And you know, I'm not faulting anybody in the system other than the system just is not the system in combination with where we place mental health and the hierarchy of what we deliver in healthcare. It was just the perfect storm for me. And
Yeah.
glad to tell you more details, but I will talk all day. You go ahead.
No, I love that. And yeah, I absolutely want to chat more about your journey with PTSD because I know it's probably shaped a lot of what you're doing today. But thank you so much for sharing all of that, kind of giving us a timeline from 1988
Right.
forward. But I know in my intro, I talked or mentioned a lot of your endeavors, we'll call them. And one of them is your documentary, Healing
Mhm.
Heroes, No Mind Left Behind. And it's going to premiere spring of 2026. So, right around the corner from when we're recording. So, can you tell us a little bit about the documentary and really what inspired you to make it?
So shortly after I sold the big company, it was my biggest company to build up and sell. I had made the transition mostly away from medicine at that point. I was more in the corporate side and built the
Hmm.
businesses and learned a lot. Um, so when the deal was done and everything was, I stayed on with United Healthcare for about a year, just to help with the transition, and I could not believe how miserable I was. I figured, here I am. I've got everything that everybody ever told me I would need to be happy, and I'm not. In fact, one of the medications actually that I've been on for a number of years because I couldn't tolerate SSRIs, SNRIs, anything. I mean, just I was the guy that had the side effects to it. But finally, the cocktail they had me on was a typical cocktail we can go through if you want to, but one of them started causing a central nervous system tremor. And so I had to stop operating years ago. And then I started to really get bad in my musculoskeletal symptoms. I couldn't even walk downstairs. I would have to take the
Wow.
elevator down a flight of stairs, and I was too proud to let people see me do that. But anyway, so when all that happened, I actually had a really rough time for the year after the sale. I
Hmm.
because I really thought that would be like crossing the finish line of the marathon. Everything suddenly would be better, but it wasn't. And actually got pretty dark. And for the first time in my life, I understood suicide, you know. And until you've been there, you can certainly look at somebody taking their own life as being selfish and not caring about the other people. And if they would have just held on a little longer, but when your jar of pennies of hope are completely spent, you don't get there very easily. But
Hmm.
anyway, decided to do something radical. Now, I'm kind of a different kind of person anyway. Not many 55-year-old former executives, physicians, multi-boarded, are covered in 40% of their body in artwork, right?
Yeah.
But I was getting most of that work done during COVID, and my tattoo artist and I became very, very close friends because you talk a lot. I mean, it's
Hmm.
300 hours of session if you think about it, right? And while I sat in his chair for a period of time, he finally just said, "Charlie, have you thought about psychedelic medicine?" And I
Hmm.
laughed. I'm just like, psychedelic and medicine do not belong in the same word. They can't even be in the
Yeah.
same, man. I just wasn't trained that way. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
open, outside the box thinker, but he goes, "Look, you know, I'm not dumb. Just check it out." And so as I started digging into the material, I realized there's some validity here.
Hmm.
Can't fully explain it. There weren't any real US studies to back it up, but there were some from outside the US. And two in particular, ayahuasca and ibogaine, I felt like had the best data behind it. Anyway, in August of 23, I actually went. I was take took 10 days off for a vacation, and I came down here to Mexico, which I kind of live here part time anyway. And I did Ibogaine. It was the best decision of my life.
Wow.
It really was. And I'm not. I was scared to death of psychedelics, guys. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I had a friend, a quote friend in college that cut up like 10 block of LSD and put it in the mustard of the corn dog I was eating, and I'd never touched it again after that. I mean, it was
Oh
just
my
horrifying
gosh.
experience, right? But anyway, I did go through this. I went through a very good program that the medicine at best is 20% of the healing process,
Mm-hmm.
which is what Western medicine's gotten away from, right? The work that needs to be done to really get there. Um, but in doing so, I did a lot of work for 4 months before going. I went, came back, and it was such a change for me. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
instant peace. I mean, I was on hydrocodone for 15 years of that time.
Oh my
Yeah, that was one of my
goodness.
millications with Lyrica, bupropion. I mean, I go through the list, Ambien. I mean, it was all there. And look, I am not knocking a single person at the VA. I'm knocking the system and the fact that, here we have these groups of medicines that aren't even being studied in the US, but that's another story. Anyway, so as I came out the other side, I went back to United Healthcare for one meeting. And
Okay.
I got up after 45 minutes and walked out and just said, that's it. So
I'm
anyway,
done.
I decided at that point that I wanted to build St. Charlie resorts for special
Mm-hmm.
needs families. And at the same time, I wanted to pay back to the veteran space because how was it in almost 30 years of practice being a multi-boarded physician and building and owning and running and selling out a healthcare system, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why didn't I know about this? Why did I learn about this from my tattoo artist
Yeah.
when I had some of the best at my fingertips? I mean, we had the best of everything, in my opinion. But anyway, I was in a bit of dismay because a lot of my friends disowned me after this in the medical community. They didn't really disown me; they just kind of
Drifted.
segregated away from me, and that's
Mm-hmm.
fine. That didn't bother me. But a lot of them didn't understand why I did this. So um, after about 2 years after the treatment, I started noticing they started coming back into my life, though, because they were very interested in going, you really did change. I went,
Mm-hmm.
I know, man. It's completely different me, and I love
Mm-hmm.
it. So anyway, what I decided to do was here you have lawmakers trying to get this pushed through, and they can't.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Governor Rick Perry, ex-governor of Texas, just got a huge bill pushed through in Texas. But again, there's so much bureaucracy getting to even the layers of this to even study it.
Yeah.
But I spent a lot of time doing that and realizing this is a very good alternative for some people, not
Mm-hmm.
everybody.
Yeah.
And if we had it as a tool in our arsenal, it would be phenomenal. But anyway, I figured the biggest culprit here was there was a blockade somewhere, and why this isn't getting accepted in Western and especially U.S. Mindset. But I decided, if people knew the stories of the people going through this, because I wasn't the only veteran to go through this,
Mm-hmm.
thousands of us have. But here we are having to leave the borders of the country we defended to go get treatment someplace else, which the US is only one of 6 or 9 countries in the world where ibogaine is not legal. And anyway, why is that? Paying out of pocket,
Yeah.
can't afford it for a lot of them. So I decided to do the film to tell 6 heartfelt stories about. I group veterans and first responders in a very similar pool.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, first responders, you guys, hats off, man. You're on the front lines every day, right?
Absolutely.
I can't imagine living that for a career as much as you guys do, guys and gals do. But anyway, I wanted to tell the stories of 6 individuals, not to make it about a psychedelic trippy medicine, which some people categorize it as, because let me tell you, there was nothing recreational about Ibogaine at all.
Mm-hmm.
But just to kind of rebrand it through telling the story. So the universe, serendipity, God, whatever your spirituality, it put 6 people in front of me that had one fire department in New York, one police officer, and 5 veterans because one of the veterans was actually the fireman as well. But
Oh wow.
I had the privilege of doing something I've never done before. So when I walked away from healthcare and executive America, I decided I was going to open a resort and make movies.
Hmm.
So that's what you do,
Love
right?
it.
Yeah. That's what you do at 53. But no, I figured I've been watching HBO since I was 4. I can handle this, man. Um, no, leadership's leadership. You find the right people and you get the
Hmm.
job done. But anyway, so we decided to do a film about tracing 6 lives going through this. And let me tell you something. These are 6 of the most courageous people I've ever met to sit there and I said, look, I will take care of your treatment. I know you can't afford it. I will take care of it. I will do everything. Even if you don't want your stuff in the film, just
Hmm.
let me have some cameras there. And
Yeah.
actually, all 6 of them at the end they were very hesitant at first. Then I was like, you can hit delete at the end. I don't care. I don't even know if this
Hmm.
is going anywhere. And so all 6 of them, as they went through their treatment, said, absolutely, we've got to tell the story because what we did is we did US tours where we interviewed all of their family and friends to get the picture of what the reality was, who they were, who they are now. But in all that, I found what you probably already well know is just that there's just not conversations happening.
Correct.
You
Yeah.
know, the veteran or the first responder tends to not want to tell the family about it because they don't want them to know how badly that we were broke or
Hmm.
felt broke. And then the family doesn't want to talk about it because they don't want them to suffer anymore because they've given so much. But that lack of conversation is a big barrier. Anyway, in June of 24, I brought them all down to Tulum, Mexico, to a treatment and in a 10-day course taught them a lot of methodologies. It wasn't just about the medicine. We worked with them before. We worked with everything from ice plunging to meditation to sound therapy to qigong to watsu. I mean, we really got into a lot of different tools and modalities that we're just not exposed to in Western medicine, right?
Hmm.
But um, after that, we went back and I mean, it was the most amazing 10 days of my career. And look, I've had some really good days and some good saves in my life, but to watch 10 people change in front of your eyes in 10 days, and
Yeah.
you can see it in the movie, it's just wow,
Wow.
the beginning and end. And here, these were people that 2 of which had a gun in their mouth within 30 days of prior to coming on to the cast. Yeah.
Wow.
In fact, one of them is we've all become a family now, but they one of them has become one of my best friends, and he and I had a pact because I was like, look, it's going to take 6 weeks for this show to start. You got to hang in there,
Hmm.
and Ryan certainly did. He was a trooper, man. But anyway, so the 10 days, and then they had such a profound change in the program we put there for them. We interviewed him again 30 days after the treatment, and
Okay.
I thought that was going to be the end.
It
Nope.
wasn't.
Serendipity again. Things kept on breaking, things kept on happening that things got in the way of finishing the movie. So I wound up actually following them for a full year after their treatment,
Wow.
up until a reunion just this last summer. So it was a great experience. And the one thing I'd say about it, this is not a spoiler at all, and I do highly encourage watching it because we kind of build out the stages of healing that are needed, especially
Hmm.
for veterans and first responders with PTSD. And so there's something for everybody in there, in my opinion. But um, I will tell you, the spoiler alert is that we learned so much about just the healing process itself, but the treatment and resetting your central nervous system and doing everything you need to do to empty all the clutter from the closets and get in there and start working on yourself again. That's great when you reset. But guess what? Life is still going to come at you,
Hmm.
right? Life
Yep.
is still going to bring you challenges. Stop labeling them good or bad, just more challenging, less challenging. Um, but what I got to document in that year were those individuals going through life's challenges. And one of them, Courtney, lost her father, who was her hero, um, lost her house in Tampa to the hurricane. I mean,
Oh my goodness.
all these things hitting them, and they did amazingly well. So anyway, that's what the film's all about. It's
Yeah.
just to open minds, open hearts. But what it evolved into was really an understanding of what's happening to veterans and
Hmm.
a lot of people. So veterans for decades now are, I think, our biggest thing. I call it the final trauma. When we leave the military, that's the final trauma. You
Yeah.
leave a culture, community, where you probably made some of your best friends in your life, and suddenly you step into a system that, oh, it's not like that on the outside. We don't
Hmm.
work late for free. We don't put the extra mile in, and we'll stab you in the back for that promotion. But it's loss of community is a big trauma for a lot of people when they get out. Then loss of purpose, right? Loss
Hmm.
of community and loss of purpose were two main threads. And it was interesting as I've worked on this and had the time to reflect on it. Isn't that kind of what's happening in our society now too?
I would agree. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. COVID didn't help much, did it?
No. Isolation, all of
Isolation.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We're meant to have relationships. We're meant to heal. We're meant to
Hmm.
have validation. We're meant to have growth. And people just don't even know their neighbors anymore.
Hmm.
You look at I mean, look at I think it's men age 25 to 35. One in eight don't even have a friend
Hmm.
because social media, Grubhub, everything. Not knocking any of this, guys. I'm just saying all layers of comfort that we have as a society that's really driven us apart in the human
Yeah.
connection.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I'm even more excited to watch your film now after hearing all of that. And, there's so many things that you share that I definitely want to dive into, especially,
Sure.
alternate treatments for the standard of, care for PTSD and, everything. But I think to kind of take us back to start from basics, um, we know that PTSD is estimated to affect about 10 to 20% of military veterans. And so I think most people listening to this podcast has an understanding of what PTSD is, but from your lived experience as a veteran, from working with individuals with PTSD, what have you noticed are some of the main risk factors for developing PTSD and symptoms that veterans in particular are
Yeah.
experiencing?
So a couple things. First of all, we know PTSD is got an age relationship. The human brain doesn't fully develop until and finish developing until about age 28 on average.
Hmm.
And so that developing brain is a little bit more prone to some traumas, and I mean both physical and situational. One thing that compounds military PTSD that makes it significantly harder to treat in a lot of cases are traumatic brain injuries and repetitive
Hmm.
brain injuries. The way the amygdala sits in the brain, and the way I explain the amygdala to people is that amygdala is like the sensors in your smoke alarm in your house. And when they sense something, threat, danger, boom, sends off
Goes
your
off.
nervous system to do what it needs to do to either fight, flight, or freeze. And um, the problem that happens when you have repeated brain injury is that amygdala gets damaged in the coup counter coup injuries, and it just does not function as well. So now you have the unprocessed trauma, you have it tied to your central nervous system and an overactive sensor that's a challenge. It's like now every time you turn the toaster on, the smoke alarms are going off in the house versus really
Hmm.
alarming you of a fire. And that's what happens in triggering. And that's what had happened to me for decades. Just little things would set me off that weren't meant to set me off. And
Yeah.
I look at this though, and I look at veterans in general. Now, you quoted the 10 to 20%. I'll tell you some work that I've done over the last year that gathering a lot of data sources and leveraging some really good algorithms for figuring this out. The age relationship is this. So yes, the average is 10 to 20%, depending on what conflict they may have involved in, were they forward deployed or not. But it is this number will be staggering. It is for if you're 18 years old and you enlist and you go into a combat role in a combat position and experience combat,
Okay.
that number is as high as 55%.
Oh my goodness.
Because besides just not having the fully developed brain, you don't have fully developed tool set yet to process things and to deal with life.
Yeah.
And now
Wow.
you look at what's happening with loss of community, no family dinners. I mean, where are you learning this stuff from? Snapchat? Where are you learning your values and your tools from? you I think we're setting ourselves up for a much worse situation coming up. But
Hmm.
I think you heard me say a couple times already. I'm not knocking the VA system or the Western medical system
Yeah.
at all. It can be highly effective and very good. But I do challenge a lot of my physician friends that still talk to me. I say, they were like, "So I didn't even know you had it." I went, "I was highly functional.
Hmm.
I was miserable, but highly functional." They were like, "So, um, what were your traumas?" And it's interesting. Mine were not from combat as I expected they would be, or taking a life as I expected they would be. It's actually from my time as a trauma ER doc in Shands Hospital, Jacksonville, Florida.
Oh, wow.
Um, think about it. When you're at war, you expect, okay, it's me or you.
Hmm.
I'm going to choose you because I got to take care of my guys. But when you're in a civilian hospital and you got a family of five hit by a drunk driver who walks away from the scene, and four of the family of five are dead on arrival, but the 6-year-old girl lives, but she is now a paraplegic on a vent and has no idea where her family is. You know,
Yeah.
those things were some of my traumas that I found out by going through this and really exploring it. But it's so interesting when you look at the fact that we've got a situation with the veterans where their main recruitment for veterans, for military is right out of high school, right?
Hmm.
18.
Yeah.
That 28-year-old brain hasn't happened yet. Skill sets haven't happened yet. And a lot of times these are the ones that are going to go into combat positions. I'm not saying by any sense that we've got a system where we should change the age of enlistment for the military.
Hmm.
No, that would not go over well. But I am saying that there should be more tools taught and basic training. They should be giving basic tools for processing and understanding a lot of this. Um, and I'm going to say this, folks, I'm not dogging the military for not having it. I went to medical school and got multi-boarded and still didn't get the tool set that I
Hmm.
needed. So this is where wonderful people like you and your podcast and all the good you spread help kind of teach the word about those things, right?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And I think, reflecting on what you said about your PTSD, your traumas, um, didn't necessarily come from combat because we're thinking of context and like
Mhm.
it's expected that you're going to face traumas. And I mean, yes, depending on your physician role, like
Mhm.
I know you mentioned working in a trauma ER. Did I hear that correctly?
Right.
Like, so you're going to experience traumas, but you don't necessarily
Right.
know what they're going to look like.
The human side, right?
Yeah.
And so what my self-defense mechanism was, I was great in a trauma bay. I mean,
Hmm.
I could get in there, all your body else is still standing back going, "Oh my God," and I'm already started to work. But I learned how to turn my emotions off.
Mm.
And that's fine. That's a fine thing
Yeah.
to do. But when you leave them off, you forget that those good emotions have a purpose, right?
Yeah.
In fact, they can be a great guide when they're untangled from the past. But yeah, it, let's talk about what the definition of a trauma is. I think
Hmm.
that's probably something good for your listeners too, because in my opinion, we are in Western medicine and all my training, and I was part of the system for years. That got a little depression there. Here's your
Hmm.
Zoloft. Come back in 6 weeks. Oh, and maybe get some counseling. Maybe get some counseling. Really, um, a trauma is a trauma is a trauma. There's small traumas, big traumas. They're additive. There's all kinds of times they can impact you more in life than others. But I think it's Levine's definition, something that comes at you too fast, too soon, or too much,
Yep.
that you just don't have the tools to process it.
Yep.
And I have seen people go through the same situation. One gets it, one doesn't. Well, they didn't have the tools or whatever that they were ready for it. And I have actually I had one patient that I dealt with in concert that as I heard her talking about her PTSD, she is wailing like she had just been through one of the worst traumas in the world. By the way, of our six individuals, only three of them were actually ever in combat. The
Oh,
rest were
wow.
raped on active duty or had childhood sexual abuse. So my point in the movie too is just say, hey, look, PTSD doesn't always wear a uniform. Um,
Absolutely.
this is life.
Hmm.
Her trauma, this lady I'm telling you about, her trauma was childbirth.
Yeah.
Now, that might make you step back for a second at first and go, what? We've been doing this for millennia. Come on. And it wasn't a horrific childbirth. It was just something she was not ready for at that young of an age that she experienced like she did. So never be judgmental about what a person's trauma might be, right? But I would challenge that we are in a society where our diagnosing system for behavioral health is diagnosing symptoms,
Hmm.
right? Depression is a symptom. Anxiety is a symptom of something deeper that needs to be dealt with. And again, a lot of people can figure that out and do it if they have the right tools, if they have the right professionals. But not many people are really getting back to the core of it all, and or even able to identify it. So I look at traumas like loss of a job,
Yep.
loss of a marriage. Those are all traumas for some people not. But I believe that the number of 10 to 20% is also a lot higher. And it's a
Hmm.
lot more prevalent even throughout the civilian medicine because we're underdiagnosing. We're labeling depression, we're labeling anxiety, we're labeling sleep disorder. Um, and who knows really how many of our troops have it once they get out. Only
Hmm.
26 to 30%, I believe, of veterans actually ever engage with the VA health system.
Oh,
So we have
wow.
everybody else out there with civilian trained docs, which not knocking, I was civilian trained, but they're not looking at that history and seeing the military and the deployments and asking the questions. So
Yeah.
I believe the number is much higher than 10 to 20%.
No, and that makes sense. And honestly, I was surprised it was that low when I was like preparing for this podcast. But given what you just said, if only you said up to what, 36% go to the VA?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a
About a third, so roughly about a third. I
okay.
mean, that's just to go get their VA disability check and they never go back again. Um,
Yeah. So,
yeah,
and
it's
I would also imagine because you kind of alluded this earlier when talking about the documentary, if people also aren't really sharing how they're truly feeling with their family,
right.
they're definitely not sharing that with a medical professional. And
Yeah,
so people, or just like you shared, you were really good at turning off your emotions, which as, a trauma ER doc, you probably need to in that moment. But if you never turn them back on, you're just suppressing and numbing.
right.
Um, so I agree with you. I would imagine if every veteran was open about how they were feeling, got access to quality healthcare, whatever that looks like, and
Mhm.
felt safe to access those things and share,
Right.
yes, the numbers would probably be
So here's where the
higher.
part of the problem lies is that when you're in the military, you typically are not going to go to the doc and talk about this because
Hmm.
it could get you pulled from duty, right? It could
Yeah,
get you pulled from deployable status. Plus, there's a stigma around mental health care. Oh, you don't
absolutely.
talk
Yeah.
about that. If something's broken there, you're cray cray. And sorry, I'm saying that because I've heard it too many times, and
No, yeah.
it's just it's ridiculous. But no, I look at that and I just think to myself, there's got to be a better way for this system to work,
Hmm.
right? Because once you get out of the military and you say you do engage with the VA for their system, again, they've got great providers, great
Hmm.
stuff. But I can tell you, I have not met anybody that's seen a counselor that has any consistency because either it's access to care or they're constantly revolving through multiple people. I recently had to tell my story again. And look, I consider myself growing, healed and growing and
Hmm.
doing very well. By the way, I wanted to let everybody know I was on 5 medications when I went into that experience in August of 23, hydrocodone and Ambien being 2 of them. They all stopped immediately. No withdrawals, no
Oh my
cravings,
goodness.
nothing. It was that fast. So I look at that and I think to myself, okay, how do we change the perception on this?
Hmm.
B has its issues. They're working through them as best they can. But let's just talk about America in general. When I came into medicine, well, I won't say when, it's been a long time ago, but preventative healthcare wasn't even a thing. Getting your
Hmm.
physical, you went to the doctor when something broke. But I would challenge that the same way we approached and really had a big impact on healthcare for preventive healthcare, the same thing needs to be done for behavioral and mental health.
Hmm.
Doesn't make any sense to have a nice polished Lamborghini on the outside, but the whole reason that car is there is to take the mind on experiences through life. And inside that transmission and engine are just failing horribly because they haven't been maintained, right?
Hmm.
Um, I'm not liking myself to a Ferrari. I was not a Ferrari, but no, it's it was a fight for me in my organization to get my doctors in primary care to even do depression screens.
Really?
It was. And
Wow.
again, not that they weren't loving great doctors, but they've
Yeah,
got 15 minutes to save the world,
absolutely.
right?
And then if the depression screen PHQ-9 is probably
They do.
what,
They do.
yeah. If it's elevated, then what do you do in a 15-minute?
Oh, yeah. Now I got to stop and either say, can you come back next week, or I'm gonna be late for the rest of the day, or referral, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, primary care is a challenge. It really is. Even being multi-boarded, I went back to primary care because I have such a passion for it. But, um, you know, I had a somebody. It was a CEO that worked for my organization for a period of time because I'm smart enough to know I shouldn't be running the business. But I remember he came up to me one day and he had to go out to one of my locations because this guy kept on bringing his dog to work. This doctor that worked for us. I knew him well. He,
Yeah.
he was Army. I was Army. Same time. We had exchanged a lot of stories, and that was his service dog.
Hmm.
But this is a medical clinic. He can't
Yeah.
have that there. I'm like, yeah, he can. Yeah, he can. And he goes, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to tell him he's got to get rid of that dog if you're not going to do it. I went, good luck with that. I'm advising you not to do it. As he walks out the door, he turns around and says, hey, I hear he's got PTSD. He's not going to go postal on me, is he? That's the stigma we're fighting.
Yeah.
He was not with the organization very much longer. But yeah, there's a stigma about this. People don't like
Yeah.
admitting when they're struggling or they're
Hmm.
having problems. And we got to just realize it's okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to misquote this, and maybe you can help me, but I think it's something like 55% of Americans will deal with a mental health issue at some point in their life. Does that sound right?
So, yes, I think I mean, depending on the age that you're looking for, because it used to say 1 in 4, and now it's much higher than 1 in 4.
Right.
Um, I've seen numbers as high as 3 in 5. So what's that? I can't do that math off the top. That's 60, right? Yeah.
60%. Yep.
Yeah. So I would say, yeah, anywhere from
Yep.
a quarter to 60. And I mean, post-pandemic, I know you brought that up. We've seen increase
Right.
in.
Give me a diagnosis in physical medicine that has that kind of prevalence in a lifetime that doesn't have a targeted program behind it and great focus.
That I was like a common cold, but I
Yeah,
don't know. Like,
right,
it was
right.
like,
But it's and again, I'm almost one of the guys too that was sitting there just trying to trove through. I mean, at a primary care visit, here's what's interesting about primary care, and I did this study with some math myself. People spend more time with their hairdresser and their barber in a year than they do their primary care doctors.
oh my goodness.
Yeah, and that's a lot to kind of follow these guys in a couple of 15-minute or 30-minute appointments in the year. But yeah, a lot gets thrown at them, and it's that first line of defense is honestly where this needs to live.
Yeah.
And we can't wait till they need a specialist referral. I mean, people just have to have a better awareness about it.
Hmm.
So I painstakingly went through the last couple of years reading everything I get my hands on for PTSD and shell shock even back in the day. Um, and I started outlining stages of healing. Like
Hmm.
we know what the components of healing can be, gratitude, forgiveness, and community, all this stuff, but what kind of sequence? And I I messed up in the movie. I'm gonna tell everybody listening to it now. I thought
Okay.
gratitude was the first step, having gratitude for
Hmm.
what's here, not focusing on what you lost in the past or what you don't have yet in the future. And really it's truth. The first step is truth. Truth with yourself, that you
Mm,
have something that you're dealing with. Truth that if you do that and you have a conversation about it with somebody you trust in your inner circle, um, you have a much higher likelihood of getting something done about it before you have a bottle of pills in your hand or a gun in your safe and you're spent the last penny of hope. So maintenance and early intervention, it's got to happen.
absolutely. So I'm just reflecting on so much that you've already shared. The healthcare system needs to change, primary care, what you shared about how many veterans actually access the VA. You shared a little bit about your own journey with like being prescribed numerous medications all at once. So within that, all of that woven, we're kind of getting a sense of what current care looks like. I don't
Right.
even know if I can call it the standard of care. I don't know if there is a standard.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Yeah.
um,
Oof. Don't get me
yeah,
started.
and then, you've obviously talked about psychedelics. So I guess kind of combining all of that, anything else about what current treatment for PTSD looks like, if you could really define that, and like what else you think is missing from PTSD care? Because I know we've already
Right.
touched on a lot of things, but kind of to
We
bring it all
have,
together,
we have, and we haven't even gotten the 800 pound gorilla out of the room of psychedelics for mental health.
which we'll
Um,
get there next, I
We'll get
promise.
there next, right? But no, it's look, there's some great treatments out there that are highly effective. I kind of
Mhm,
rated them because I've been through them all through time. Um, uh, I've been through EDMR, I've been through group counseling, I've been through one-on-one counseling, I've been through a slew of different medications. I have been through a lot of soul searching, a lot of vodka because I self-medicated for years. Sorry, I caught you at the wrong time on that, right? But no, I mean a lot of people self-medicate, unfortunately, and that's no good for them either. But you know, what's missing, obviously, is awareness and having the conversations and honesty about it. Um, there are just some cases that those techniques are not as effective for,
mhm,
and I will tell you this right now. Psychedelic medicine, which I'm going to call plant-based medicine because it's kind of psychedelic brings a counterculture kind of feeling to it. But plant-based medicine that deals in this realm, this is nothing to play around with.
yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of these clinics popping up all around through Mexico that I'm sorry, they have to be some of the best treatment centers. Um, you're opening up somebody's mind. You're putting
mhm,
them in a suggestive, very vulnerable state to allow them to get in and see things that have been right in front of them the whole time, but they didn't recognize. And then you're integrating with them to help them get through all of that. And you could imagine if you have somebody that doesn't know what they're doing or, oh, God forbid, has bad intent. I'm
mhm,
not going to go into personal detail, but I will tell you this. My experience with this was life changing. It
yeah,
was absolutely life changing. My neuropathy that I was on the Lyrica and the gabapentin for, decades gone.
wow,
Nerves should not regrow that far out, but ibogaine actually caused neuroplasticity and neurogenesis. I Brain age is being reduced on functional MRI with this stuff. Why aren't we studying this for spinal cord injuries and
mhm,
everything else, right? But anyway, the whole process has to be in some way studied in the US.
yep,
It has to be tested because I've also seen the worst of it.
okay,
I
yeah,
saw somebody very, very close to me go to a place that was not very good,
okay,
and they weren't skilled enough to handle the fact that bipolar 2 should be a contraindication to these therapies.
mhm, yeah,
It stimulates a manic response, just like an SSRI would if we prescribe them because of the serotonin effect. And that person now lived on every day in the mania. Who goes to the doctor when you got mania? You're happy.
nobody, because you're happy
No, it's
and
like
you're on
you're on
top of
a
the world.
sorry about your guess. I'm going to say it's like you're on a bump of cocaine every day and you're just living life, right?
Yeah,
Um, but, but your life's falling apart around you don't see it. But this individual kept is now going back every 6 to 8 weeks and getting it again and again and again. And it's just a whole different reality now. And
Yeah.
so there does need to be some regulation, some controls,
Hmm.
some standards, some ethics, but it's got to be studied first. I,
Absolutely.
I'll tell you a story that's kind of impactful. We got time for another story. I like stories, you
Yeah.
know.
I
So
have time if you have time.
I love it. Yeah. So I tell people all the time, I'm like, look, I'm going to tell you a story about a movie I'm going to make, the next movie, and it's called Phoenix, Philadelphia.
Okay.
And I want you to tell me if this falls in the category of fiction or nonfiction. And if it falls into fiction, let me know when it gets to the point, okay, that's ridiculous. That would never happen. That get nobody pick up that movie. So enemy combatants invade the US. And the enemy combatants come in number and strategy enough that they're able to capture the cities of Phoenix and Philadelphia.
Okay.
Every single citizen is captured. And
Okay.
already we got to be moving into fiction. Gun-toting America, that ain't gonna happen, right?
Yeah.
Um, Strongest military in the world, yeah, it's not gonna happen. But let's say it did. Every citizen, 3 to 4 million between the two cities. Let's say the enemy combatants aren't getting heard, so they start torturing every citizen,
Okay.
every day,
Okay.
every citizen, every day. How long would that go on till we had a
Somebody
solution
else.
to get in there and
Yeah.
do something that, okay, let's liberate these two cities. These are American cities.
Hmm.
American on 9/11, 3,000 souls, they lost their lives, right?
Hmm.
And we went and waged war on terror for decades. Imagine what would happen if they captured 3 to 4 million of us. I mean, even the countries in the world that hate us are going to be sitting there at that point going, y'all need some help.
Yeah.
But let's go further. Let's say the
Okay.
torture doesn't get any response and they start executing a citizen every hour on the hour. How long is that going to happen? Right? The issue is that this is not fiction.
I was about to say this is
You're
definitely a
on it. You do as a
parallel.
trick. Yeah, it's a trick. But no, I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
It's the 3 to 4 million Americans or the veterans that are
Yeah.
and first responders that are suffering with PTSD, and I'm counting those that have been underdiagnosed. It's not Phoenix and Philadelphia. It's all four corners of our nation and around the world where we spread to. The enemy combatant is PTSD,
Christy. Mm.
and the torture is real. The executions, unfortunately, are just self executions.
Yeah. I was following and I was like, I believe this is probably an analogy, but when you got to the executions, I was like, that's suicide because that's where my
Bingo,
research was throughout grad school.
bingo.
And
Oh,
so
I
I was
got you.
like, yeah.
I saw you track and I was like, man, she's one of the smart ones. Dadgummit. Um,
But no, but I think sometimes you need to put it in an analogy like that
yeah,
because you're like, oh no, obviously people would intervene.
right.
But
You really
the
do. You
fact
have to
is
level
they're
set this
not.
stuff, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you a spoiler for the movie.
Okay.
The last scene of the movie, and I don't mind spoiling it because it's just the truth. So we end this movie in a happy story, right? We've got these
Mhm.
six individuals got their life back, their hero status restored, which they never really lost. But I have to reset because I'm like, I don't want people leaving here thinking we got six down, millions more to go. So I do a desert march, and I go out to the desert and I filmed this last scene where 9/11 we lost 3,000 souls. For each
Mhm.
thousand, I take a step into the desert,
Okay.
and I take that step into the desert, put down a white rose, salute, come back. We waged war on terror and promised to never forget shortly after. And on the battlefield, I was surprised with these numbers, but we've lost 7,000 military in the battlefield on the war on terror.
Okay.
And so I take 7 steps, pass the rows, 4 more steps. Then I come back to baseline. And I'm like, okay, this next march is because we broke our promise. We forgot and we didn't see what was happening.
Mhm.
Because this next march, I take 1 step for every 1,000 veteran lives that have been taken by suicide since 2001, when all this started. I take
I can't. I
183 steps into the desert.
was about to say I can't do that math that quickly because I
Yeah.
know it, isn't it? Is it still every
It's 22,
22
it's 20,
per
it's
day?
22 a day, but honestly,
Okay.
the numbers are skewed so badly because the VA system and the county systems and death certificates don't line up. There's keystroke error issues. Here's an interesting one that really changes it. As a physician, I had to fill out death certificates all the time
Hmm.
on people that I wasn't there when they died, but had to give best guess. Well, there's so many near suicides that studies have shown anywhere between 10 and 30% of the time that suicide is the cause of death, it's not listed, either because the physician couldn't exactly say, well, maybe he just took one pill and he in his delirium he accidentally took all the rest, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
he meant to drive straight through and off that cliff. Or maybe he didn't mean to. Maybe it was an
Yeah.
accident, right?
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
and so there's also fear that the stigma for the family, there's life insurance policy issues, the good old
Mm-hmm.
brother-in-law hookup. In fact, they showed that smaller towns had a higher prevalence. So if you have errors in that and in the data,
Mm-hmm.
that number is a lot higher than 22.
Yeah.
Then you group in the first responders because I wait for people to challenge me on that number of 183,000. Bring it. That's
Yeah.
that's uh, that's where I'm sitting there and just gonna do. No, it's real, but it's something we all got to pay attention to, and not just
Mm-hmm.
because these people served us. It's time for us to serve them, kind of thing. But I truly do believe that with what I see as commonalities in the pattern of what happened to them, loss of community, loss of purpose, as two very big key factors not well addressed, it's happening to the rest of us now.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, everybody listening to the show that's a provider, you better inspire your kids to go into the field, and we better get out there and start retraining a whole new generation that hadn't been trained yet with the life tools they need.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Dr. Charlie, I could talk to you for hours. Like, I literally am like, there's so many more questions I could ask or insights I want from you, but I also want to be mindful of your time. And you've shared so many wonderful things, highlighted what's not working, what could work, the nuance, and I appreciate all that. And so, if any veteran is listening, or maybe even a family member of a veteran is listening and they're struggling with PTSD or trauma, what words of advice or encouragement do you have for them today?
Have the hard conversation, but do it with no judgment. And no matter how you approach somebody that's dealing with this, they're going to take it as judgment. I could walk up
Okay.
to somebody in the street and say that mole on your wrist looks abnormal, and you're like, "Oh, thank you." You walk up to somebody with a crooked, broken nose and an ugly face saying you need plastic surgery, they're not going to take that well.
Yeah.
It's even more so in the case of mental health when you start telling people, "Hey, I've noticed some things." So it's not about implying, it's not about suggesting, it's more about, "Hey, I see some things going on, and look, I know your standard answer is I'm fine,
Hmm.
but 8 minutes, I just want to sit here and listen. And if you don't
Hmm.
want to talk, that's fine." But it all starts with truth. Before I went into my treatment, I had, right day before I went into treatment, I did not tell anybody where I was going, but I found out that a lot of my people were going to be laid off of the company that I sold.
Oh,
And
wow.
I did not want them thinking that I sold them up the river and ran off to
Hmm.
Mexico and was spending my winnings from the Get Powell game show of life, but because I wouldn't be in contact. So on that town hall the next day, which I've been having for years, every Tuesday, that was part of our culture, man. 500 people on that thing. I did something I wouldn't have done because of that, and I went into full confession about my
You told them.
PTSD,
Wow.
how miserable I was. I didn't tell them about the attempt of my life, but
Okay.
right up to it. I did it out of self-defense because these people were my family.
Yeah.
But several great things happened from that truth. So if you're a veteran, you're listening, I want you to know that vulnerability is a strength.
Hmm.
When you open that up, I didn't have a single person come at me. In fact, I was worried about a couple that didn't particularly like me in the company. But one of them, Stacy, actually sent me an email. "I am standing up in my chair and I am clapping for you right now. I am so proud of you."
Oh my goodness.
I had 4 or 5 people email and say, "I'm going to go get some help now too." But when somebody has the courage to be vulnerable, that is huge. So, family, if somebody has the courage to start the conversation with you, be non-judgmental. Do not dissuade them. Do
Hmm.
not sit there and try to downplay, upplay, or anything. Just say, "We're going to figure this out. We're going to do it together." Boom, get the help you need from there. Um, for the family that doesn't know how to approach it with the person that they're worried about, it doesn't have to be a veteran, first responder. I mean, anybody. It could
Hmm.
be your son spending too much time in his room and doesn't associate with his friends anymore. And gee, could that be the divorce that's weighing in heavy on him? You ask that son, he's going to say, I'm fine.
Hmm.
I'm fine. Sometimes it's just about being present
Hmm.
for when the opportunity comes up that they do want to talk, not being judgmental, not pointing out faults, but finding creative ways just to keep the conversation coming in. But
Yeah.
ultimately, you can't change anybody that's not ready to change or seek out improvement. But relationships and honesty are the two key components to making sure it's got its best chance.
Yeah. I love that. Well, Dr. Charlie, thank you so much. Like I already said, I could talk to you for hours. There's so many more thoughts and questions, but the last question I ask all my guests is where can people connect with you and where can people watch your documentary if they're listening to this in real
Gotcha.
time and it's out?
No, I appreciate that. First, I want to be clear. I don't own, operate, or have any interest in treatment centers. I did this just for the movie. Uh, healingheroes.com is the website for the movie, Healing Heroes, No Mind Left Behind. So healingheroes.com, when the movie launches, is going to have a lot of great reference material on places you can go that are good for things like this.
Mm.
And that's always subject to change. You just never know as new things add and delete. But um, there'll be some good resources there. As far as where the movie's going to live, first of all, I will tell you this is for anybody to watch
Mhm.
because A, you get to watch six really good heartfelt stories of healing. B, if you pay attention, you might just learn something that can help yourself or help somebody else. And C, it's going to be on so many streamers and networks. I did not
Mhm.
want to lock in with one. I took cuts in my percentages off this. I'll never make my money back off this. I don't
Mhm.
care. But no, we're going to be on six major streamers, and I
Wow.
can't list them all yet, but two
Okay.
of them start with the letter A. There but no, I was just so proud that these people were willing to bring it on in their
Yeah.
format. Not just one, not Netflix. It's just like multiple. Yeah, we'd love to have
Yeah.
that. But my other thing too is to make sure there's some free platforms that people can
Good.
free watch with ads. That way they don't have to have a subscription. So the reason I did that, I want it to be out there. So healingheroes.com, and we'll make announcements here probably in the next few weeks about exactly which ones as we sign
Okay.
those deals and ink them final. But I'm super proud to say that I did not lock in with one streamer because I wanted this to be everywhere. And please watch it. And if here's another thing I thought of though. If you've got somebody in your life that you think is
Mhm.
struggling, here's one thing. Sometimes it's hard to bring it up. Maybe send them the link to the movie. Just say, "Hey, I just watched this movie. Watch it and give me a call after."
Love
Now,
that.
they may think it's you that needs to talk or vice versa. It doesn't matter.
Mhm.
But at least starts the conversation. And it
Yeah.
does it with hope because it shows these outcomes, very real outcomes that turned out positive.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. And honestly, one of my big things, primarily in mental health and healthcare, but just accessibility in general. So I love that you didn't just
Yeah.
lock in with one streaming network or are finding avenues to make it available with ads, because people need to hear these stories. They need to see this. And like you said, even
Yeah.
if watching this film is the first step into starting a conversation,
Mhm.
that's so important. So thank you.
Right. So go into it for the patriotism and so in doing more than just saying thank you for your service, which by the way is always so sweet when I hear that. But maybe we can do a little bit more than just saying thank you for our service. Okay.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Charlie, once again, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for sharing your
Absolutely.
personal experiences, your insights as a physician and veteran, and everything you shared. And I just appreciate this conversation so much. And I know so many people listening will appreciate it as well. So thank you for your time today.
You got to pause there because I got to thank you because I actually went through your library on your podcast and you've got
Oh,
some really great topics out there. These are things that aren't being addressed, aren't being talked about. I particularly paid attention to the one on autism. I was just like, why is this? So no, people that are out there willing to take their time and their personal time to have a voice and do something, that's the beginnings of community to fix things right there.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Well, thank you. And thank you, the listeners, for joining for today's episode of Psych Talk. And I will catch you in the next episode. Bye. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Psych Talk. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the show. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend. Don't forget to follow me on all socials at Jessica Lee, PhD, and the podcast at Psych Talk Podcast on Instagram.